Move this over here. Can't really see it. Just trying to figure out. Hello, everyone. Just trying to make sure that everything is okay here. Oh, yes, you do see it right here. Okay, awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. Just doing the random live thing. And the camera's completely out of focus. Let me knock myself on it. And no wonders. There, that's much better. Awesome. Yeah, I think that's much better. I'm gonna go on the YouTube here because I got the laptop so I can actually see my own feed and interact better. Because I hate having to turn my head from the camera. So it says that I am live. That's a good sign. So I'm gonna open that up and there I am. Mute, and I can participate and chat easier this way from here. I can progress from time to time and see if people are showing up. So hello everyone. Hope all is well. It's December 16, 8:58 p.m. where I live in Northern Ontario, Canada. And good evening. Just got home. That's Elijah. Awesome. Hope the drive was okay. It's 6 p.m. Oh, lucky you. 6 p.m. Really? I thought you were on the coast for some reason, like by my goodness, why am I doing a tongue twister here all of a sudden? Portland area, no? Central Oregon. Oh, why was I thinking Portland for some reason? Portland, Oregon. I might have all that tongue twisted. I don't know why I just thought of that. So yeah, I hope everyone is doing okay. Just doing a live here. Nothing much nothing much planned on the agenda. And I've been working on solid state air cells, just a side project of mine. I'm pretty fascinated by it because slightly different reaction as to what we're used to with the traditional dissimilar electrodes when it comes to metal. You're actually using the air here as the positive. And it needs air, obviously. And people do this because it's usually a high current thing. The magnesium in the solid state, in the non-solid state, like the seawater cell, essentially. You can buy these as a kit, actually. eBay has them. They're pretty cheap, and you can run a little motor on a little Lego car. They're pretty fun. They have the solution. You have to mix it with like a quarter of salt with the water literally shaken in there, and then place the liquid in a little cell. It's got the membrane air breathing fabric on one side, which is like white, and then the carbon on the other side. Then you got a little hole with a little syringe to push the salt water, very concentrated salt water in there. And as soon as you hook a load to it, it will literally start. It's going to be a galvanic like reaction to the magnesium takes a shit beating, and you can hear it fizz and you can see it disintegrate right before your eyes. But 1.5 volt could like generate half an amp for a couple hours with one little tiny plate, but it gets eaten up right away. So you get a lot of voltage. It's an area thing. So a bigger plate could get you like 24 volts at like maybe 5 watts or something. But again, very quick disintegration. And that's part of the catch with the air cell is for this reaction to be efficient, the electrolyte needs to be very lots of ion and even acidic, yeah, so between those two things, the magnesium has no chance. So, but why not take the same concept, use the air as the plus, but on the solid state way where there's basically no corrosion. If the electrolyte is not made of a corrosive element, like salt water or vinegar or something like that, that would really hurt the magnesium. It's just environmental. It's like having the magnesium sitting literally on my desk on a piece of cardboard. It won't disintegrate any more so than it would just literally sitting on my desk. As long as unless I do something to it, like put salt water or vinegar on it, but I don't plan to do any of those things. So just sitting on my table here, it is a real long-lasting thing. Not high power, obviously, but it puts out a few milliamps and it's continuous. I'll run little things, LEDs, oscillators, batteries, charging, capacitors, and it's literally the air. And without the corrosion effect that everybody usually gets when they build it, the seawater cell, they call it. I had in my mind, why the hell do we need to use seawater to trigger, especially something free like the air? You got the air that's free. You want to generate the pure potential from the environment, but then you're destroying it with essentially a galvanic reaction. No, instead, do something that and solid state method. You throw away much of the current, but there's other applications to it. These as well. But then it gets a little flunky, a problem. That's why you have to basically make the scale because when you start DC series, like what would be like an output battery, if one behaves a little flunky or one's getting more oxygen, and they will, than the other, it disturbs the whole chain. So this is not stable, which I learned. You can't have series cells essentially. But nothing stops you from making one hell of a big, like a 1 foot plate, which will on its own give you like 6 volts without all of that flickering from having multiple cells. Because it's literally the air, it's an area thing as well, as much as a material reaction. So, my goodness, there's already 12 people. That's awesome. So just because a lot of people were wondering what it was, they're trying to guess, they're linking it to a traditional galvanic, they're trying to figure out the aluminum and the magnesium. It's nothing like that. The aluminum is just a literal contact to the plate, which is the conductive, which people are getting angry at me, but it's just this, really. No secret, right? I've shown this before, but I hate having to repeat myself, and sometimes I just don't think of it. People say I'm trying to hide stuff, but that's all it is. And that does a hybrid. It acts as your carbon for the air cell, and then the conductive gives you an electrical path for the air, the plus path. And this becomes the electrode. So it looks like it's a reaction between these two, but it's not. So it really fools the eye without a detailed explanation to how it actually works. And let's see here. And the longer, see, same thing, pretty stable, 2.929. And I touched it and everything, It's all dependent on the size. And it flickers all the time a little bit because, I can go like this. There you go. 2.907, just because it's very reactive to the air. So now I found this box. This was an old, don't even know what. It's not a phone. It's not an antique. It's a recent one. It's a hand crank generator. So I just want to see I actually lost the handle, so I have to use one of these. So I'm just gonna see if it actually works. Figure out what it puts out, if I can. I'm just curious. This would probably be AC. I'm going to set up the AC here. Okay. I can keep that in there. You have to invent like a voltmeter with actual proper freaking things. These are always the wrong. They don't contact, they're too thick, or they don't bend. Especially for someone who's always, you think they would have this a little bit more. And never, it's always, maybe I should be quiet and come up with it and patent the idea. And then you got these things that get in the way, so you can't like hold it against the base. I just want to keep it in there. See, it's making a simple task very difficult. Unless I put two wires and just go like this. Shouldn't be this complicated though. Whatever. Like I said, I haven't seen one. I've got voltmeters all over and they're all the same way. You've got this fat lump around it that gets in the way of everything when you're trying to use a base or something. And this thing here is so thick, you can't really, and there's no bend on it, so whatever. I need to come up with something. And market it a voltmeter that you could actually use. There's one, there's two. Connect this to the voltmeter. We'll see what kind of madness I get out of this. Okay. So I give it really slow. This thing, I lost the handle for it, so. $49 volts, 30 volts. 120. All right, so this is like mains level. So does that mean we could run a mains light on this? There's a mains light bulb. I don't know if it's going to work that way. We'll find out if this thing really is that powerful, because I'm hardly cranking the thing. It seems pretty easy to. We'll see under a load. Okay, things should be a little different now. We got to readjust this thing here. I got to find a handle for this. Oh my goodness. I'm doing this with one finger. If I can keep this handle on. It's just this stupid screw here. Maybe if I had a thing for that a while back, right here. Okay. That's pretty powerful. This will charge, I guess, a 12-volt battery like nothing, right? So that works. That's interesting. Could be good for something. AC generator, about 100 watts. And think, you know, it's pretty efficient. 100 watts with doing this with your finger. If I had the right handle, it'd be no problem. So, something else I'm working on, the barium cells. So here's one I made right here, homemade, non-linear capacitor. So essentially it's one layered on the other, but one is non-linear. I mean, what am I trying to say here? Asymmetrical. Sorry about that. And what happens is, because it's very piezoelectric, when you put a load on one capacitor, the displacement triggers the piezoelectric of the asymmetrical plate of the second capacitor that's on there. That creates a feedback loop back into the other one. So what seems to happen is you put a high impedance load, you just give it a tap, and internally the piezoelectric, the two of them in a series setup, like a very similar the idea of the capacitor circuit I made with the multiple, like 3 capacitors in one. So I decided to use the same concept here, where one of the capacitors is asymmetrical to the other. So when you trigger a discharge on one, it creates a displacement field in the other. But because the dielectrics here are piezoelectric, you get additional feedback out of every displacement. So what I've realized here, just from experimenting with this configuration, which is one capacitor on top of the other, each side of the plates are conductive plates with the piezo dielectric in the middle. One is much larger than the other by design. So what happens is I trigger it just with the meter, and for about 15 minutes after, it bounces internally. And it'll jump to, like, one will be 10 volts and the other will trigger 20, and the other. And you can go back with the meter and measure it over and over again. But what I've noticed is it's AC bursts. Like if you keep a load on it, it just flickers. But if you take the meter or whatever off of there, you let it jump from the spike. It's that actual spike that triggers the piezoelectric response in the other capacitor. So what I'm getting at is a timing circuit to simply switch them like they'd be a native power source real quick between the two. You get hundreds of volts. So I don't know if you can see. Now I can show the meter here. So like here's one tap here. So this would be one of the capacitors. So 0.4. So now I triggered it. I'm going to go to the other one. So that was 0.7. And I'll go back here. And when I know how I could show you this, but when I cycle back and forth, hold on. See, 0.4. It's really weird. Sometimes there's nothing, and sometimes they'll burst to like, there it went. But I have to keep oscillating between the two. And sometimes it'll burst so high that my meter goes 0, 0 here, which means that it goes like essentially over 1,000 volts. And you saw that all I'm doing is oscillating between the two capacitors. The meter, which is a high impedance, closes the loop, and it triggers this frenzy behavior within these. So it's something that I'm actively researching and experimenting with because it's got some really weird behaviors. So yeah. So this is where I am. This works. That works. This works. Um, that's acting flunky, but I'm sure someone can take a nap. Maybe myself. I'll charge capacitors, obviously, and if there's sudden spikes of 100 volts coming in, that could be useful. So so yeah, this is like what it's almost doing what it was doing with John's stuff, right? And that's what the idea. But the thing is, I didn't have $1,000 in plates, so it's like the first stage of the John cell. You know, I've got one pair. He had like all this high worth of them, right? But barium titanate is plates, especially pre-done and pressed and everything, are a fortune, which makes it almost unrealistic to experiment with. So with that said, I got two. Yeah, John was lucky. He was under a contract, and they were specifically working on that. So they didn't mind paying the $1,000 of materials, and it was like, here, John, assemble it for us. But on my personal dime, it's up. But my goodness, I was impressed by just what one set of them is doing. Just make it asymmetrical between the two, and they'll continuously fight each other once you set off. It's like a chain reaction. So yeah, this is all interesting stuff. Just looking, I gotta do a cleanup in here. Everything gets all so many projects on the go. But I do want to make a 110 volt version of the air cell. Um, Crudely speaking, it's going to be like this big, but who cares? I mean, if you can get that much voltage at a few milliamps, that's real. At that voltage, that's actually power. You know, it'll charge real batteries and run little lamps and things like that. Like I mean, like lamps. I don't mean LED. I mean like actual. These kind of lamps will run just fine if I can scale this up to 110 volts. Because by the way, these things work fine on DC. Just for your information, if you give them the right voltage, just a little capacitor that charges in here, and then there's a built-in oscillator that feeds off of that and runs high frequency to the LED. They all have their own built-in joule thieves, essentially. So yeah, hmm. My goodness, I'm running out of things to say here. I thought I'd be here all night with this generator. It works. I used to have all these gas tubes and plasma stuff, but oh my goodness, I wrecked those, unfortunately. Whatever. We all know it works now. I'm going to think of what to do with this. All right, folks, so I guess maybe I should have planned this session better, but that's all part of the live, right? I just wanted to show that, specify the air cell features and why I chose to make it solid state versus the traditional seawater method, and why. Obviously, I don't want corrosion. They want it because they want current, they want that kind of reaction, but that's not the reaction I'm looking for. So here we have it, and a little bit of exploration with these new plates here. Very fun stuff. And until next time, folks, thank you for spending some time with me, and have yourself, we are in the holiday season, so happy holidays to everyone, and enjoy your day. Thank you.